Why are so many German AFD party members winding up dead? Well, we covered this story months ago after about 6 or so AFD right-leaning conservative party members died unexpectedly. It seemed odd. Well, since we covered that story, we've had another 5 conservatives who are basically in the opposition against the government establishment. 11 of them. Like, someone's got to be killing these people, right? Because it doesn't add up at all. Dr. John Campbell says it's statistically impossible for this to be happening. Watch.
Of course, there's a time to be born and there's a time to die. And none of us know specifically when we'll die, but we can work it out based on populations and demographics and age profiles and predisposing conditions, how likely death is. And using those criteria, it's very unlikely that these deaths would have occurred in Germany, essentially spontaneously. These 11 deaths that occurred in Germany were all in opposition party candidates, 7 of whom were AFD, Alternative for Deutschland. So if you haven't got time to watch this video, the bottom line is that this is mathematically very improbable, and yet it has happened.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. These AFD party members are a threat to the socialist government of Germany, who want to close their borders and end these ridiculous green energy policies. And they want Germany to stop supporting Nazis in Ukraine. They want Germany first, and that's why they're a threat. Someone else who the government thinks is a threat is Naomi Seipt. She's a journalist from Germany who's now seeking asylum from President Trump in the United States because Germany is coming after her for telling the truth. Naomi, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Hi, great to see you too. Thank you so much for having me on again.
First, I want to hear, I want to get to your story and why you're seeking this asylum. But first, on this AFD question, it seems like the German government is saying nothing to see here. We've investigated this. Nothing odd at all for 11 people to just drop dead who happen to be in the opposition. Do you agree with the German government's assessment of this?
I will say they like to call me the right-wing conspiracy theorist, but even I doubted this claim that they were killed for a very long time because I thought to myself, okay, let's wait a minute, let's at least investigate. But then they didn't want to investigate. And then more and more AFD members died. At first they told us, but these people, the ones that were killed or died specifically, they were older than 60, even though I would argue I know a lot of people who get much older than 60. Some of them, or at least one of them, had cancer. But then you also have to consider if they actually did intend to kill that many AFD members, they would have to make sure that they have some sort of alibi. It would be very suspicious if all of these AFD members were like 30 years old. So it does make sense to me. And now at this point, as you just mentioned, it's statistically extremely unlikely. And they have a reason to kill these AFD members because the AFD is now the most popular party in Germany. And we all know that in the next election, the only way that the establishment can still stop the AFD from being in the government is by forming a massive coalition that goes against the AFD, even if the AFD gets to something like 40% of the vote. But then there would be something like a civil war. I'm quite sure of that, because imagine 40% of the voters being entirely ignored. And that's why the only thing that they have left to do now is to try to stop the AFD members from running. For example, some candidates are banned, cancelled altogether, or they just let them die somehow, miraculously.
It's remarkable. And where does this opposition stand now? Now that many of these party members have mysteriously died, what kind of stranglehold on power do they have, and what sort of power does the opposition have to try to overthrow this government?
It's looking pretty scary, but at the same time, we are becoming more and more resilient. I'm not an AFD member myself, but I strongly support the AFD, and it's very important for me to operate on the outside so I can be something like a bridge between the people and the AFD party, and also a bridge between Germany and America, which is why I have applied for asylum. And I have so much respect for the work that the AFD does. And it's very remarkable as well that Alice Weidel was one of the people who made a post on X which she doesn't make a post about everything. She's not tweeting 24/7. She made a post when the first 7 AFD members died. And she didn't say anything specific about it, but she just pointed at it. She just said 7 AFD members dead. That was a very suspicious post because I thought she would not have done this if she didn't want to draw our attention to this matter. And Alice Weidel oversees everything very closely, and she's very cautious with her words and how she handles herself in public because she is the most persecuted woman in Germany for sure. The Antifa members, not even just Antifa, even members of the youth wing of the left party, they put out a post and a sticker even that they spread around Germany where they had Alice Weidel's face with a target on her face. This was just after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And then just 2 days ago, I think, another AFD member, his car was torched by Antifa members, who then posted their confession letter. And in the confession letter, they say, you damn MAGA freaks, you are all going to follow Kirk to hell. Those were their words. That's very chilling, not just for AFD members, but also for the voters. I am very convinced that a lot of people who are not openly supporting the AFD yet will do so in the next election, but they cannot talk about it because they're genuinely scared.
Journalism is under attack. You are now under attack, and you're asking, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What specifically are you asking for? Because you've been telling the truth. But I know from other journalists, not just you, who live in Germany, who've told me flat out, if they've been covering certain stories, they'll receive letters from the government threatening them, coming after them, going after them, where they want to leave and get out of Germany because it's so bad. What is happening to you?
There have been many instances with other people like myself who have been spreading the truth. But what makes me and my work unique is I was the very first and probably only German influencer, political journalist, commentator who speaks in English to the international audience and specifically to the MAGA supporters as well. And Germany is scared of the impact that the MAGA movement has had. That's why they isolated Germans for such a long time. In Germany, we have the tax-funded state media, and we just get this very communist type of media. The German news are horrible to watch because it's so boring. You cannot compare it to something like, I don't know, the Redacted show, but also the more mainstream, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. They are more flashy and entertaining. In Germany, it's just very cold, and you're not going to have people thinking for themselves because they just get this one straight source of news, and everything that's being said about America on our news channel is negative. Our #1 US correspondent for the state media, Elmar Thewissen, he sits in Washington, D.C. in Georgetown, and he lied about Charlie Kirk. He compared Stephen Miller, who's a Jew, to the Nazis. And when Trump was just elected into his presidency, he said that this is very reminiscent of the Third Reich. So it's very clear what kind of image is being portrayed among Germans about America. And so Antifa, I believe, is uniting right now between America and Germany because this movement originated in Germany. They are essentially even stronger in Germany. And now they want to come for everyone who doesn't just support AFD members, but also the MAGA movement. That's why they said in their letter, in Germany, we're coming for all you freaky or damn MAGA freaks, and you're following Charlie Kirk to hell. So in my case, to elaborate on that a bit, I am under threat from Antifa as well. Antifa want to kill me. They have sent me death threats via letter. They have called me at my home phone number because it's a legal requirement. I had a YouTube channel for years, and it's a legal requirement that I put my address on my public YouTube page. So everybody knew where I was living, and my mom's law firm is at our home, so her number and everything was public too, and we didn't have any security or anything. So we got death threats to our phone number. We had Antifa, just as a joke or maybe a warning, a threat, send a funeral service to my home, and they were looking for an alleged Thomas Seibt, who doesn't exist, but it was probably a threat that they're coming for me next. So that was brutal. That was very chilling. I had a little sister who was terrified because she was alone with me during that time. I went to the police with these claims. And they found out who was behind it, and they said, as long as you haven't actually been raped or killed, there's nothing we can do about it. But now, at this point, I'm not even the most scared of Antifa anymore, because Antifa, they have been brainwashed. They look at me and they see a monster because they have been trained to perceive us that way. The people that I'm actually scared of, that's the German government, that's German intelligence, who are actively putting me under surveillance. They have put the entire AFD under surveillance, and then I filed a request to German intelligence with my attorney. And the response that we got was that they have basically collected evidence about me since, at the very least, 2019, and my name is in there at least 1,000 times. I also found out that my phone calls had been intercepted because I was involved by association in a witch hunt against one of my friends who was put in jail for 1 year because of a parody YouTube channel where he was just posting stuff like, oh, he was burning bacon on the Quran. That was something that he got multiple months for. So he was in jail for 1 year, and he ran away just before he was put in jail because he just had his firstborn son. And he wanted to be there for the baby. He knew they were going to find him, but he wanted to be there for the baby. And then eventually they found him. But the way how they discovered him at all was because they intercepted his friend's phone calls. And I was implicated in this entire operation. This went on for at the very least 3 months last year. And we got evidence from the federal police that these phone call interceptions took place, and also that as soon as they have somebody implicated on the phone, they can then continue to intercept their phone calls too, which means it's very likely that they continued this operation behind the scenes from German intelligence, not just the federal police. It's horrible.
Horrible. What has have you gotten anywhere with the Trump administration trying to protect you and provide that asylum?
Yes, for sure. I was extremely fortunate because I did not want to ask anyone for help. I didn't want to go begging at the US government or even Elon Musk and ask anyone for help, because I thought, I have a legitimate case. I want to do this the normal way, and I want to be taken seriously. Then Anna Paulina Luna, she saw that I was posting about it, and she invited me to her office the day after my announcement. And I was extremely lucky because she asked me to bring all my evidence. She said, this will help you. I explained everything to her. It was maybe 2 hours, the entire meeting. So we had a lot to talk about. I had so much evidence. She took everything. She took it very seriously. She said, we're going to help you with fast tracking your process, and then maybe they're going to be able to help me somehow. I know that I have an extremely strong support movement now in America. I'm truly blessed, I have to say, with my entire path that I took over the past year, because there were many moments where I was just terrified, because I knew, of course, I can't stay in the United States forever. It's not just me trying to stay in the United States, because I could have applied for a journalism visa or something else. But it was important for me to get protection from the US government, because my goal is to not stop anytime soon. I want to keep posting on X. I want to keep making videos. I want to keep spreading the truth. And I'm working with an alternative media outlet in Germany, Deutschlandkurier, very proudly, and they are being persecuted by the government as well. And I want to be the bridge between Germany and America to actually deliver truthful news to Americans and to Germans. And I can only do that with protection from the First Amendment.
Well, our thoughts are with you. We sure hope that the Trump administration comes through on this and is able to protect you now more than ever. Independent journalists need protection from these tyrannical governments. At least in the United States, we have free speech, even though it's under assault. And at least here we have freedom of the press, even though it's under assault on a regular basis. But boy, I know from these journalists in Germany who have been going through some things, and the fact that you're here and being under surveillance by them, and you have the proof of it, is deeply disturbing. Naomi, thank you so much for your courage, and please let us know if there's anything we can do here as well, and please keep us updated on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.